Ancient humans had better teeth than you do, and they never brushed. Look at the skull of a hunter-gatherer from 15,000 years ago, and you'll see a nearly perfect set of teeth, straight and free of cavities. Today, a bacteria called Streptococcus mutans lives in almost every human mouth. It feeds on sugar and produces lactic acid. That acid eats microscopic holes into your tooth enamel, dissolving the calcium and phosphate that make your teeth hard. For hundreds of thousands of years, this bacteria was a rare, harmless passenger. The teeth of ancient hunter-gatherers carry almost no trace of Streptococcus mutans. Prehistoric humans ate a diet of fibrous meat and tough roots. Chewing those hard foods required immense jaw strength. The sheer mechanical force of chewing physically scraped their teeth clean with every bite. And their diet contained almost no soft starches or refined sugars. The bacteria simply had nothing to ferment. They didn't own toothbrushes. They didn't need them. So how did this rare bacteria eventually conquer our mouths? Roughly 10,000 years ago, we invented agriculture. We stopped foraging and started growing vast fields of domesticated wheat and barley. We pounded those grains and baked them into soft breads. These grain-heavy diets flooded the human mouth with fermentable carbohydrates. Enzymes in your saliva immediately break those carbohydrates down into simple sugars. And suddenly, Streptococcus mutans had an endless food supply. The bacteria multiplied exponentially. It built thick, sticky films of plaque over the enamel, trapping the acid against the tooth. Fossil record from this period shows a sudden, dramatic spike in rotting, decaying teeth. You can trace the spread of farming across the globe just by counting the cavities in human skulls. A cavity is an infection. When the acid burns through the hard outer enamel, it reaches the dentin, a porous layer filled with microscopic nerve endings. If the infection goes deeper, it hits the pulp, where the main nerves and blood vessels live. The tissue swells, but it's trapped inside a rigid shell of tooth. The pressure builds, causing intense, agonizing pain, and prehistoric humans tried to fix it. Even before farming, our ancestors were obsessed with their teeth. In early hominins, like Homo habilis, and later in Neanderthals, you see distinctive, deep grooves worn into the sides of their teeth. Constant, repetitive friction created these grooves right at the gum line. Neanderthals constantly wedged sharp pieces of wood or bone between their teeth to relieve pressure and dig out trapped meat fibers. They used toothpicks. They picked their teeth so aggressively and so often that they permanently altered the shape of the enamel. But as the human diet changed, toothpicks weren't enough. In a cave in northern Italy, there's a jawbone from a 25-year-old man who lived 14,000 years ago. This was right on the cusp of the agricultural revolution. His lower right third molar has a massive, dark cavity. The inside of that deep hole is completely covered in tiny, parallel scratches. A human hand made these scratches. Someone took a pointed flint tool and physically scraped the infected tissue out. They dug out the rot with a sharp stone. By 9,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution had begun. At a site called Meagar in modern-day Pakistan, people were eating heavy, grain-based diets, and they were performing actual dental surgery. In the ruins of the settlement, there are 11 teeth from 9 different adults with perfectly round, deep holes drilled straight into the biting surface. These holes are up to 3.5 millimeters deep. They reach all the way down into the sensitive dentin layer. The people of Meagar used small wooden bow drills, originally designed for making bead jewelry. They equipped these drills with tiny, sharpened flint bits. We know these patients were alive when the drilling happened. Chewing wore the edges of the holes smooth. That only happens if the person continues to chew on that tooth for years after the procedure. There was no anesthesia. They just held the person down and drilled into the exposed nerve of a living tooth with a spinning rock. It takes about 1 minute of continuous high-speed drilling with a flint bow drill to create a hole this deep in a human tooth. A full minute of a stone grinding into an infected nerve. You don't know if the dentists at Meagar filled these holes with anything. Any plant resins or asphalt they might have used decayed long ago. But by 6,500 years ago in Slovenia, we have direct proof of ancient fillings. A left canine from a Neolithic jawbone has a severe vertical crack. That crack exposes the sensitive inner layers of the tooth to the air. A solid plug of beeswax sits packed tightly into that crack. Someone pressed the wax deep into the crack right around the time the person died. Someone carefully softened the beeswax and pushed it into the fracture to seal the exposed nerve. Agriculture changed the trajectory of the human species. It gave us massive surpluses of food. It allowed us to build permanent settlements and develop specialized labor, but it completely altered the delicate ecosystem of the human mouth. Farming built the world you live in, but it didn't do your teeth any favors.